first time I realized my mother-in-law could erase a child with a sentence, I was standing barefoot on kitchen tile with pancake batter drying on my wrist and my daughter's sparkle clip warming my palm like an oath. Gold, Nora had whispered the night before, laying the barrette on the table with ceremonial care. Auntie Lark loves gold. It'll make her happy. Nora was 7, old enough to notice who smiled at her and who looked through her like glass, young enough to still believe adults meant what they said when they said family. I had clipped the barrette into her curls, kissed the spot above her ear, and told her we were going to have a beautiful weekend. We were going to a wedding. Or at least, that's what I thought. At 7:18 a.m., my husband, Miles, came downstairs in a charcoal suit with a garment bag over his shoulder. A garment bag on a Tuesday. He moved with rehearsed calm and refused to meet my eyes. "I have to go," he said, already angling toward the door. "To work?" I asked, spatula hovering above the griddle. Miles never had to go without an explanation. He forgot anniversaries, sure, but he never forgot a schedule. He only buried them. He set his coffee on the counter without looking up. "My mom's at the hospital." My stomach dropped in a way my body recognized before my brain caught up. "Janine?" He shifted, weight rolling from heel to toe like the floor might open. Renee called. "It's bad." Renee was his sister, the bride-to-be, the one who posted pastel engagement photos like proof of happiness. "Okay," I said, grabbing my phone. "Then we'll go. I'll call the school, pick Nora up, and—" No. The word came out too hard, too fast. "Nora stays in school. Hospitals are full of germs. And you'll just be in the way." There it was, translated cleanly. "You'll be in the way" meant, she doesn't want you there. You'll make her uncomfortable. You'll ask questions. You'll exist. Nora padded in wearing unicorn pajamas, hair sticking up like static, eyes half open. "Dad?" she murmured. "Is Grandma Janine okay?" Miles's face rearranged in a blink. Warm dad mask. Soft smile. "She's not feeling great, Bug, but she'll be fine." He kissed Nora's forehead, picked up his keys, and walked out before I could form a second sentence. The garage door rumbled shut, and the house became quiet in that specific, sickening way it does after someone drops a lie in the center of the room and expects you to decorate around it. Nora climbed into her chair and swung her legs. "Can we still go to Aunt Renee's wedding?" I froze. "Wedding?" She nodded like I'd asked whether the sky was blue. "Daddy said it's this weekend. He told Grandma to stop being dramatic, because he was trying to keep you calm." "Oh. So there was a script." I just hadn't been given my lines. I swallowed the sharpness in my throat because Nora's eyes were wide and trusting, and she deserved pancakes, not panic. "Go get dressed, honey," I said. "Backpack, shoes, the works." She hopped off humming, leaving a trail of glitter from last night's craft project. I stood there watching batter bubble and brown, my skin itching where it dried, the truth thickening in my chest like wet cement. Miles didn't forget his sister's wedding. He hid it, which meant someone told him to, and Miles, devout in his loyalty to Janine, as if she were a saint, instead of a woman who smiled with her teeth and poisoned with her kindness, obeyed. From the street, my life looked normal. Inside, his family treated me like a temp. Janine never yelled. She preferred compliments that cut. "Oh, Callie," she'd say, smiling. "I love how you try." I drove Nora to school like the sky hadn't cracked open. I smiled at her teacher, kissed her cheek, watched her run inside with that gold barrette flashing under fluorescent lights. Then I sat in the parking lot with both hands on the steering wheel and tried to manufacture an innocent explanation. Maybe it was a tiny wedding. Maybe it was postponed. Maybe Miles had gotten the date wrong. Maybe I was being dramatic. My phone buzzed. "Miles. At hospital. It's chaos. Don't worry about Nora. I'll update you later." Hospital. Sure. I went home and did what I always did when Janine's family made me feel crazy. I looked for receipts. Literally. The folder was in the pantry behind the Costco paper towels, because apparently our marriage ran on bulk supplies and hidden documents. Inside were spreadsheets. Miles loved spreadsheets when they didn't involve accountability and a glossy contract with gold embossing. Oak and Iron Catering, Lakeview Country Club. Event date, Saturday. Guest count, 102. Children, 28. 102 guests, 28 kids. And somehow my 7-year-old didn't belong. I flipped to the payment schedule. Deposit paid, second installment paid, final payment due Friday at 10 a.m. Tomorrow. Then I saw the detail that turned my throat to ice. Billing contact. Callie Mercer. Email. Mine. Linked account. Our joint checking. My name. My email. Our money. 2 years earlier, after Thanksgiving dessert, Janine had sat at my dining table praising my folded napkins like it was a resume skill. "You're so organized, Callie," she'd said sweetly. "It's easier if the family stuff goes through you." I had said yes because I wanted peace. I wanted belonging. I wanted to believe effort gets rewarded. I had heard trust. It had been convenience. I called Miles. Voicemail. I called Janine. Voicemail. I called Renee. Ring. Then stop. Rejected. So I opened social media. Renee's profile was public because Renee believed in privacy the way she believed in consequences. Vaguely, and mostly for other people. Her story highlight was a parade of satin robes and champagne flutes, and invitation flatlays I had never seen. Then I found a rehearsal dinner clip. String lights, white linen, laughter that sounded expensive. In the center of the frame stood Janine, my critically ill mother-in-law, smiling, holding a wine glass, very much not dying. The camera drifted closer, and Janine leaned toward someone off-screen and said crisp as glass, "Of course Callie isn't coming." Someone chuckled. Janine waved her hand like she was brushing lint from her sleeve. "She doesn't fit," she said. "And her kid? Please. That kid doesn't belong with us." Then soft, casual, like background music, I heard Miles laugh. Not loudly. Not proudly. I watched the clip twice because denial is stubborn. Then my screen went dark, and I sat in my silent kitchen, realizing the ugliest truth. This wasn't about a wedding. This was about Nora. By noon, I understood something else. When a family decides you are optional, they will still happily cash your checks. I didn't storm into the rehearsal dinner. I didn't call Janine and scream. I didn't show up at Lakeview Country Club with Nora's gold barrette in my fist like a weapon, because I knew how Janine wrote stories. If I gave her fireworks, she'd call it proof that I was unstable, jealous, dramatic. She would never admit she'd called a child unwanted. She would only describe my reaction to it. So I did the quiet thing, the thing that doesn't look like revenge until the consequences arrive. I opened our banking app. Our joint checking account was where everything lived. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, Miles's truck payment, Nora's after-school program. It was also, apparently, where Janine's perfect wedding fantasy lived, disguised as family logistics, with my name on the paperwork. I stared at the balance and felt a strange clarity settle in. The money wasn't just money. It was hours my freelance design gigs done after Nora fell asleep. My weekends sacrificed to deadlines so we could have a cushion. Miles's paycheck covered the baseline. Sure, but I was the one who built the padding that made his family feel comfortable spending. If the contract listed me as billing contact, and the account had my name on it, then legally I wasn't stealing. I was securing. Morally, I was finally choosing my child. I opened the separate account I'd kept since before I married Miles, the one my mother insisted on when she hugged me after the rehearsal dinner for our own wedding and whispered, "Just in case." Back then I thought she was paranoid. Turns out she was experienced. I initiated the transfer. My finger hovered for half a second, not because I doubted the rightness of protecting Nora, but because I knew what this action would unlock. Once you move money, you can't pretend you're fine anymore. The costume tears. I moved the funds cleanly, leaving enough behind to keep our auto pays from bouncing immediately. I left a specific number, not an accident, not a mistake, a message. I wanted them to see the remaining balance and know it was intentional. Then I hit confirm. A loading circle spun. The world didn't explode. No sirens, no lightning, no dramatic music. Just a silent shift, like a door clicking shut. My hands shook afterward, not guilt, adrenaline, the kind you feel when you finally put on your own oxygen mask. I closed the laptop and started packing, not like a movie, like a mother. Nora's leggings, pajamas, swimsuit, favorite hoodie, 2 pairs of sneakers because kids always soak one, my jeans, a dress, toiletries, chargers, her birth certificate from the file drawer, her social security card, my passport, the emergency cash envelope taped under the bottom drawer that I had forgotten existed. I didn't have a perfect plan. I had a deadline school pickup and a nervous system buzzing like a live wire. So I did what every stressed American mom does when life collapses. I booked a trip. Florida appeared first because the algorithm can smell desperation. There was a flight that evening with 2 seats left, and a hotel with a pool and a refundable rate. I clicked. I paid. I used my credit card, the one in my name, because I wasn't leaving Janine a trail she could twist into financial abuse. At 3 o'clock, I picked Nora up from school like it was any other Tuesday. She ran to the car, backpack bouncing, barrette flashing. "Mom," she said breathlessly, "we learned about volcanoes." "Volcanoes, huh?" I managed, forcing brightness. "How would you feel about an adventure?" Her eyes widened. "A surprise?" "Me and you," I said. "Just us." She hesitated, tiny shoulders lifting. "No," I said softly. Nora looked down at her hands, and my heart cracked at the awareness in her voice. "Did we get uninvited?" "We weren't invited at all," I wanted to say. But the truth needs a gentle landing when it's headed for a child's chest. "We weren't invited," I said, keeping my tone steady. Her face went still as her brain refused the data. "But Aunt Renee likes me," she whispered. "Like liking should be enough to protect you." I took her hand. "Some people say things that aren't true," I told her, choosing each word like glass. "And sometimes they do things that aren't kind. That's about them, not you." Her eyes filled. "No," I said, firm enough to build a wall. "You did nothing wrong. You never have to earn a place." Nora sniffed. "So, where are we going?" I smiled, the first real smile of the day. "Somewhere with a big pool and ice cream. Somewhere nobody gets to tell you you don't belong." She blinked. "Is it Disney?" "Of course it was." "It might be," I said, letting hope do its work. That night we walked through the airport with 1 suitcase and Nora's unicorn backpack. She held my hand like if she let go, the world might change its mind. I bought her a pretzel bigger than her face. I let her pick a ridiculous keychain. I watched curiosity push sadness aside, inch by inch. Before we boarded, I sent Miles 1 text. "Nora and I are safe. We're taking a trip. Do not contact me through your mother. I'll be in touch when I'm ready." Then I emailed the same thing because in America, timestamps matter when people like Janine rewrite reality. On the plane, Nora pressed her forehead to the window as we lifted off. My hands shook for 10 minutes. Then the clouds swallowed the ground and, with it, Janine's voice. The next morning, the hotel smelled like chlorine and waffle maker syrup. Nora bounced on the bed as if gravity were optional. Her hair a damp halo from the pool we hadn't even reached yet. "Pool first?" she begged. "Pool first," I agreed, because letting her joy lead for a while felt like medicine. We swam until our fingers wrinkled. We ate pancakes that didn't taste like betrayal. Nora giggled so hard she snorted, then laughed harder because she'd snorted. And for a few hours she was just a kid, no family politics, no whispered judgments, no tasteful rules about how much space she was allowed to take. At lunch, I turned off airplane mode. My screen lit up like a slot machine. Missed calls, voicemails, and messages stacking so fast I couldn't read them in order. I didn't open anything yet. I watched the notifications bloom and realized something simple and brutal. They hadn't noticed I was missing until the money was. I put the phone face down on the table, smoothed sunscreen into Nora's shoulders, and decided I would listen only when I could do it without shaking. At 10:01 a.m. Friday. while my daughter hunted for pool toys. 90-plus wedding guests learned the cost of calling a child unwanted. I didn't see the ballroom. I didn't need to. Miles's first message was sharp and disbelieving. Callie, what the hell did you do? Renee is losing it. The account, call me right now. Renee's voicemail followed, pure meltdown wrapped in bridal entitlement. This is my wedding. The caterer won't start service without payment. Fix it. You're ruining everything. And then Janine's voice arrived, syrupy as ever, like she hadn't just disowned my kid on camera. Callie, sweetheart, there's been a misunderstanding. Transfer the money back. This is not the time for your tantrum. Be reasonable. Tantrum. Right. When Janine humiliates a child, it's keeping things tasteful. When a mother protects her kid, it's a tantrum. Nora patted over in flip-flops, eyes squinting in the sun. Mom, she asked quietly, are we in trouble? The way she said it small, careful, made my throat tighten. Why would we be in trouble? I asked. She stared at the concrete. Daddy sounded mad. And Grandma Janine. Her voice dropped, like she was confessing a secret she'd already been carrying. Grandma doesn't like me. I crouched in front of her and took her hands. You and I are not in trouble. You are not a problem. You are not too much. You are not anything Grandma says when she's being mean. Her eyes shone. But why doesn't she like me? Because you're proof I can't be erased, I wanted to say. Because you're roots. Because you make me permanent. But I wasn't handing a 7-year-old the full horror of adult cruelty. I gave her the truth she could hold. Sometimes people have something broken in them, I said. And instead of fixing it, they take it out on other people. That doesn't mean you're not lovable. It means Grandma isn't safe with her words. Nora sniffed, nodded. Then, because kids are resilient in the most humbling way, asked, Can we get sprinkles later? I laughed. Sprinkles later, I promised. That afternoon while Nora napped, I did the unglamorous part of survival. Not the cinematic part, the paperwork part. I opened my notes app and listed what I'd need if this turned legal. School records, insurance numbers, passwords, copies of the contract, screenshots of the rehearsal video. I changed passwords first, not out of spite, but safety. When a man panics, he doesn't always become violent. Sometimes he becomes reckless. Sometimes he starts fixing things by locking you out. I froze my credit. I rerouted my direct deposit. I saved every message. Then I booked a consultation with a family law attorney back in Illinois. Her name was Priya Shah. Her voice had the calm of someone who has watched 1,000 families implode and knows exactly where the sharp edges are. I told her the facts. The lie about the hospital, the contract in my name, the joint account, the video, the trip, the messages. Priya didn't gasp. She didn't scold. She said, You're not kidnapping your child by taking a trip. Keep communication in writing. Keep your location known. Don't refuse reasonable contact unless he becomes threatening. And the money? I asked. Moving funds from a joint account you're on isn't illegal, she said. But courts care about fairness. Don't spend it. Secure it. Document why. Keep receipts. Receipts. Fine. I had receipts. Friday became a stream of texts from Miles, each one more frantic than the last. The planner is threatening to shut down the bar. Guests are asking questions. Mom is screaming. Please just fix it. We'll talk after. After Renee got her photos. After Janine got her illusion. After everyone ate and stopped whispering. Then we could discuss my daughter's dignity. I didn't answer. Saturday morning, a new message arrived. Shorter. Rawer. The venue won't serve until the balance clears. They're literally standing there. Everyone's watching. I pictured it anyway, Renee in lace, kids asking for food, Janine in pearls, and a planner repeating, payment first. Because contracts don't care about family titles. Miles called at 10:23. I let it go to voicemail. His voice sounded ragged now. Callie, please. We'll figure everything out later. This is humiliating. Humiliating. Not wrong. Not cruel. humiliating. Like the tragedy was that people were watching. I deleted the voicemail not because I didn't need it, but because I didn't want Nora hearing his voice like that if my phone played it by accident. That night, we sat on the balcony with fries and warm air and palm trees swaying like they didn't know anything about Janine Mercer. Nora dipped a fry in ketchup and asked casually, "Are we going home to Dad?" "I don't know yet," I said honestly, because lying would have tasted like Janine. Nora nodded, then her face tightened. "Did Dad not want me there?" I took a breath that felt like swallowing glass. "Dad made a bad choice," I said. "And I'm going to make sure you're safe. While he learns to make better ones." She leaned against me and whispered, "I like you better." I kissed her hair. "Same," I whispered back. On Monday, Miles called again, and his voice was exhausted, like someone who'd spent a weekend cleaning up a mess he helped make. I answered, because I was ready, not because he deserved it. "Where are you?" he asked. "On a trip," I said, "with Nora. You can't just take her." "I can," I replied calmly. "She's my child too. And I told you she's safe in writing." Silence. Then, carefully, "Renee's wedding was a disaster." "Oh?" I said. He exhaled. "Dad did a cash advance. Dinner stalled. The bar shut down. People were talking. It was bad." "And why?" he asked, voice cracking. "Would you do this to us?" "To us. Not to Nora. Not to me. To the wedding." I watched Nora laughing. "Miles," I said quietly. "Your mother said my child doesn't belong. On video. You lied about a hospital. And I heard you laugh." He tried, weakly. "She didn't mean it about Nora. She said it like she was choosing napkins," I replied. "You heard it. You let it happen." "I didn't know what to do," he whispered. "You did," I said. "You just didn't want to do it." His breath hitched. "I'm sorry." The apology didn't warm me. It sounded like consequences, not conscience. For once, my silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy today. "What happens now?" he asked. "What happens now," I said, "is we talk to lawyers, and we set boundaries. I'm done living around your mother." The moment we pulled back into our driveway, Janine showed up in pearls and rage because nothing terrifies a controlling woman like losing access. We came home a week later. The house looked the same, but the air felt exposed, like a window had been opened and couldn't be shut again. Miles was waiting with grocery store roses on the table, the kind of apology you can buy in aisle 9. I didn't touch them. Flowers don't undo betrayal. Nora walked in, stared at her father, and asked the question adults avoid because it's too honest. Why didn't I get to go to Aunt Renee's wedding? Miles glanced at me like he wanted rescue. I didn't move. He knelt so he could look at her level. His voice came out rough. "It was wrong," he said. "Grandma said something mean, and I should have stopped it." Nora's lip trembled. "Did you hear her?" Miles nodded. "I did." "Why didn't you stop her?" Nora whispered. He stared at the carpet like answers lived in the fibers. Then he said the ugliest truth. "Because I was scared." Nora blinked, almost offended. "Scared of Grandma?" Miles nodded, shame all over his face. Nora's shoulders straightened with a fierce clarity only kids have. I felt something in my chest loosen, like a knot finally admitting it had been there. The next weeks weren't dramatic. They were practical, which is the kind of courage that doesn't get movie music. Priya drafted paperwork for a temporary parenting schedule. Miles moved into the guest room. We communicated more in writing than in person because writing doesn't let people rewrite your tone later. He started therapy because apparently that's what it takes for some men to understand that boundaries aren't an attack. He tried school pickups, homework, small choices that didn't include his mother. I noticed. Without handing him instant forgiveness, Janine escalated the way she always did when control slipped. First came texts soaked in concern. "Callie, stop this. This isn't how we handle family matters. You will be held accountable." Held accountable by who? The wedding police? Then came emails about unity and respect, written like Janine was drafting a constitution. Then she tried to call Nora through Miles, as if a 7-year-old existed to soothe a grandmother's ego. Miles said no. It was a Tuesday afternoon, ordinary, the kind of day when nothing dramatic is supposed to happen. Janine's SUV rolled up like a black beetle, and she stepped out wearing pearls and a cardigan the exact shade of control. She didn't ask about Nora. Of course she didn't. She pointed at me in my own driveway like she owned the property. "You are destroying this family," she said. I kept my voice calm. "Hi, Janine. Nice of you to finally acknowledge I exist. Don't be smart," she snapped. "I'm not being smart," I said. "I'm being accurate. You stole money." "I transferred money from an account my name is on," I corrected. "And my attorney is documenting everything." The word attorney made her eyes flash, like I'd cursed her. Miles stepped outside behind me, drawn by the noise. Janine's face softened instantly into sweet mom performance. "Oh, honey," she cooed, turning toward him. "Look what she's doing to you." Miles didn't hug her. He didn't smile. He just stood there, and something in Janine's expression flickered confusion, like the script had gone off track. "Mom," Miles said quietly, "you need to leave." Janine blinked. "Excuse me? You need to leave," he repeated. "You said awful things about Nora. You lied. You made me lie. And you humiliated Callie." Janine's mouth tightened. "I humiliated no one. She humiliated herself." "That's not true," Miles said, voice steadier than I'd ever heard it with her. "And if you can't respect my wife and my daughter, you don't get access to us." Janine stared at him like he'd committed a crime. Then she snapped her gaze to me. "This is you," she hissed. "You've poisoned him." I shrugged. "If the truth is poison, Janine, maybe your system was already failing." Her eyes flicked toward the house, toward the window that faced Nora's room, and I stepped forward before she could even think about pulling my child into her war. My voice went calm as glass. "If you ever say one unkind thing to my child again," I told her, "you will not enjoy what happens next." Janine's nostrils flared. For a second I thought she might slap me. Then she spun around, marched back to her SUV, and peeled out of the driveway like she was fleeing consequences. Miles exhaled. I didn't congratulate him. One decent moment doesn't erase 7 years of cowardice. But it proved something important. He could have done this earlier. He just didn't. After that, boundaries became real. No surprise visits. No calls to Nora without my consent. No gatherings where Nora was treated like an accessory. Janine told the extended family I was unstable, vindictive, jealous. Whatever word made her feel powerful. She never mentioned the video. She never repeated the words she'd said so casually, as if cruelty didn't count if it was served with a smile. Nora didn't need propaganda explained. She had ears. One night, while I brushed her teeth, she said matter-of-factly, "Grandma said I don't belong." My hands stilled. "She was wrong," I said, and pulled her into a hug. "And you never have to shrink to fit someone else's cruelty." Miles heard her say it once, and I watched his face change like he finally understood this wasn't about me winning an argument. It was about Nora building her identity around shame, or around truth. Paperwork turned into signatures. Signatures turned into a new address. Nora and I moved into an apartment with sunlight and quiet and a pool she loved. It wasn't glamorous. It was a reset. A place where no one could show up unannounced without consequences. On our first night, Nora colored at the kitchen table, tongue sticking out in concentration. Without looking up, she asked, "Mom, do I belong with you?" I set everything down and knelt beside her. "You belong with me," I said. "Always." She nodded, satisfied, like her heart had been waiting for that sentence. Then she grinned. "If you have a wedding someday, can I invite whoever I want?" I laughed. Real. "Then I'm inviting you," she declared. "Because you're my favorite." I hugged her until she squealed, and for the first time in a long time, the air around us finally felt like ours. Somewhere back in the old neighborhood, Janine was still telling her version until Renee called me months later, demanding I admit I was wrong. The last time Renee tried to rewrite the past, She called me on a Thursday night and demanded an apology as if my daughter's dignity were a bill I'd forgotten to pay. I was standing in my new kitchen, smaller, brighter, mine watching Nora color at the table with a purple marker clenched like a flag. The pool outside glowed under the courtyard lights, and the quiet in the apartment felt earned. My phone lit up. Renee. I answered because curiosity is a stubborn habit. Hello? No, she said immediately, skipping the greeting like it was beneath her. I leaned against the counter and kept my voice flat. Which part do you want to revisit, Renee? The part where your mom called my child unwanted on video, or the part where your vendors finally demanded the payment you were happy to have run through my name? Renee exhaled hard, like I was a defective employee. Mom was stressed. It was a big day. You know how she gets. Yes, I said. I know exactly how she gets. That's why Nora and I don't see her. You ruined my wedding, Renee snapped. I almost laughed. No. Your mother ruined your wedding when she decided my daughter didn't deserve a seat. I just refused to fund the lie. Fund the lie? She repeated, scandalized. Janine used my email and my account for your perfect day, I said. She was fine using me when it was convenient. She just didn't want my kid in the photos. Renee went quiet for a beat, then tried a new angle, softer, weaponized sadness. Miles says you're turning Nora against the family. I looked at Nora, humming as she colored a crooked heart. Nora doesn't need me to turn her against anyone, I said. She has ears. She heard your mother. She watched her father choose silence. Renee's voice sharpened again. So you're really doing this? Splitting up the family over one comment? One comment? I repeated, letting the words hang. It wasn't a comment. It was a verdict. And it wasn't about me. It was about a 7-year-old learning whether she's lovable. Renee huffed. Mom wants to see her. She misses her. That's not what missing looks like, I said. Missing looks like accountability, an apology, therapy, anything besides pretending it didn't happen. And if she won't? Renee challenged. Then she doesn't see my kid, I replied. That's the boundary. You sound smug, she said, as if that were an insult. I smiled because she wasn't wrong. There is quiet power in not begging anymore. I hung up before she could rewrite my tone. A minute later, Miles texted. I answered. Yes. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, I understand. That was new. Not healing, not forgiveness, but new. Miles's therapy didn't turn him into a hero. It turned him into a man forced to look at the wreckage of his passivity. He still tried to bargain sometimes, suggesting just one holiday, offering a quick visit so his mother wouldn't feel excluded. Every time, I said no. Every time, I reminded him, Nora's feelings are not a negotiating chip. We built a co-parenting routine that was boring in the best way. Wednesdays at the library, Saturdays for soccer, Sunday calls at a set time. Miles learned to show up without bringing his mother's opinions with him. Nora started sleeping through the night again. Her teacher told me she'd been more confident. She raised her hand in class. She spoke louder. It turns out a child blooms when she isn't treated like an inconvenience. Once, months later, Miles picked Nora up from school, and Janine called while he was driving. Nora told me about it later. Matter of fact, Dad put her on speaker. She said, rolling her eyes in a way that made me proud and sad at the same time. Grandma said she wanted to come over. What did Dad say? I asked, bracing. Nora grinned like she'd been waiting to share good news. He said, No, Mom. You don't get to show up like nothing happened. You hurt Nora. You need to apologize to her first. My throat tightened. And what did Grandma say? Nora mimicked Janine's airy voice perfectly. She said she didn't do anything. And then? I asked. Dad said, Then you don't see her. And he hung up. Easy for her, maybe. For Miles, it was a lifetime of training fighting back. But he did it. And I didn't celebrate him like a savior. I just marked the moment as proof. He was capable of choosing his child over his mother. On a quiet night near Nora's 8th birthday, she climbed into bed and asked, "Mom, was it bad that we left?" I smoothed her hair, the gold barrette now sitting in a little dish on my dresser like a trophy. "No," I said. "It was brave," she yawned. "If Grandma ever says I don't belong again, can I tell her something?" "What would you say?" I asked. Nora's eyes were sleepy but certain. "I'd say, you don't get to decide that." I kissed her forehead. And that's the real ending, not the wedding chaos or the screaming voicemails. The ending is a child who learned that belonging isn't a prize a cruel adult hands out. It's a fact. It's a home. It's a mother choosing her, even when choosing her costs everything that used to look like stability. Janine still tells her version, of course. In her story, I'm unstable, vindictive, I stole money. I kidnapped Nora. She never mentions the video. She never repeats her own words. But truth doesn't need her permission. It shows up in the way Nora stands taller now. In the way Miles finally draws a line. In the way I stopped auditioning for love in rooms where love was conditional. So here's my question for you. Because I know opinions will be loud. If you were in my shoes, would you have moved the money and walked away? Drop a 0 if you think I should have paid and kept the peace. Drop a 1 if you think protecting Nora mattered more than anyone's perfect wedding. And if this hit close to home, if you've ever been the outsider in someone else's family, tell me in the comments what you would have done next. I read them. And I promise, you're not alone. If you want more stories like this, like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs a reminder that boundaries are love. Next time, I'll tell you about a baby shower, a group chat, and the screenshot that ended it.